Captain Jake Morrison stood at the viewing window of the UES Endeavour, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. The station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a metal city floating in space, with lights flickering across its surface like stars. "Sir, we're getting their docking instructions now," said Lieutenant Amy Chun from her position at the communications console. Her voice carried a mix of excitement and nervousness that Jake understood well. "Take us in nice and slow," Jake replied to the pilot. "We want to make a good first impression." Dr. Lisa Hamilton joined him at the window. She was the team's expert on alien cultures, and Jake had come to rely on her advice during their long journey to this moment. "The station has been here for over 1,000 years," she said quietly. 47 different alien species work together inside those walls. "And hopefully soon, 48, Jake said. Behind them, Ambassador Helen Carter was reviewing her notes one final time. She had spent months preparing for this moment, studying every detail about the Galactic Council and their customs. She believed deeply that humans deserved a place among the stars, working alongside other intelligent species for the good of everyone. Commander Ryan Foster stood near the back of the bridge, his arms crossed and his face serious. He had not wanted to come on this mission. He thought humans should focus on building their own strength instead of asking aliens for permission to exist. But orders were orders, and he was here to protect the diplomatic team. The docking process took 2 hours. The alien station was built for many different types of ships, and human vessels were still new to them. Jake watched as strange, graceful ships moved around them. Some looked like they were made of crystal. Others appeared to be grown rather than built. Each one represented a different species that had found acceptance in the Council. When they finally docked, a group of aliens was waiting for them. The leader was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer like water. This was Veltar, the Prime Minister of the Zephyrians and current head of the Council. He had been in power for 300 years. "Welcome, humans," Veltar said through a translation device. His voice sounded like wind chimes. "We have been curious about your species since you first left your home world." Ambassador Carter stepped forward and bowed in the way Dr. Hamilton had taught her. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Prime Minister. Humanity is honored to be here." They were led through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The station was home to millions of beings from dozens of worlds. Jake saw creatures that looked like walking trees, others that floated in the air without wings, and some that were clearly mechanical, but moved with purpose and intelligence. The council chamber was enormous. Representatives from all 47 member species sat in a great circle, each in an environment suited to their needs. Some breathed different gases, others lived in water, and a few existed as pure energy. Technology made it possible for them all to communicate and work together. Ambassador Carter began humanity's presentation. She spoke about Earth's history, about how humans had learned to work together despite their differences. She showed them human art, music, and literature. She explained how humans had developed space travel and begun exploring the galaxy with respect and wonder. Dr. Hamilton presented the scientific achievements of humanity. She showed how humans had solved problems with creativity and determination. She explained human medicine, engineering, and technology, demonstrating that humans could contribute valuable knowledge to the Council. Jake spoke about human exploration and their desire to learn from other species. He shared stories of the first human missions to other worlds, emphasizing how carefully they had approached each new discovery. The presentation lasted for 6 hours. When it ended, the council members began to discuss among themselves. Jake could see some of them nodding, while others seemed concerned. The translation devices could not capture all the nuances of their conversations, but the tone seemed mixed, Veltar called for order. The Council will now deliberate on humanity's application for membership. The human delegation will be provided with quarters while we make our decision. The waiting was the hardest part. For 3 days, the human team stayed in their assigned rooms, trying not to think about what was happening in the council chamber. Dr. Hamilton spent her time studying the alien cultures they had observed, while Commander Foster quietly assessed the station's defenses and security systems. Ambassador Carter paced in her room, going over every word of their presentation, wondering if she had said something wrong. Jake tried to stay calm, but he could feel the tension building in his team. On the 3rd day, they were called back to the council chamber. The representatives looked somber, and Jake felt his heart sink before anyone spoke. Veltar stood slowly. The council has reached a decision regarding humanity's application for membership. He paused, and the silence stretched uncomfortably. We regret to inform you that humanity's application has been denied. The words hit like a physical blow. Ambassador Carter stepped forward. May I ask why, Prime Minister? The Council has concerns about humanity's aggressive nature and rapid expansion. Your species has a history of conflict and territorial disputes. We believe humanity needs more time to mature before joining our peaceful alliance. But we've shown you our progress, Carter said, her voice rising despite her diplomatic training. We've demonstrated our commitment to peace and cooperation. The decision is final, Veltar replied. We suggest that humanity continue developing for another few centuries before reapplying. Dr. Hamilton activated a small recording device hidden in her jacket. She had been monitoring alien communications during their stay, and what she heard made her blood run cold. Several council species had spoken privately about the human problem and how dangerous it would be to let such a rapidly advancing species join their ranks. Commander Foster stepped forward, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. So that's it? 3 days of deliberation to dismiss an entire species? Commander, Jake said quietly, putting a hand on his shoulder. We're guests here. Security forces appeared at the chamber entrances, alien beings in armor that hummed with energy. The message was clear. The humans were no longer welcomed as... They walked back toward their ship. Dr. Hamilton whispered to Jake about what she had discovered. The rejection was not about humanity's readiness for peace. It was about fear. Fear of what humans might become if given access to advanced alien technology and trade networks. The journey back to Earth quiet. Each member of the team processed the rejection in their own way. Ambassador Carter felt like she had failed her entire species. Dr. Hamilton was angry about the deception. Commander Foster was not surprised, but he was planning. Jake looked out at the stars and made a decision. If the Council would not accept humanity as equals, then humanity would have to prove their worth in other ways. The age of asking for permission was over. The age of taking what they needed was about to begin. The news hit Earth like a thunderclap. Within hours of the U.E.S. Endeavor's return, every major news network was broadcasting the story. Humanity had been rejected by the Galactic Council. The dreams of joining a peaceful alliance of alien species had been crushed. President Nathan Brooks sat in his office, watching the protests that had erupted in major cities around the world. People were angry, confused, and hurt. Many had hoped that contact with aliens would mark a new chapter in human history, one where wars and conflicts would become things of the past. The people want answers, said his chief of staff, bringing him the latest reports. They're asking why we weren't good enough for the council. Brooks rubbed his temples. He had spent sleepless nights since receiving Captain Morrison's report. The truth was worse than simple rejection. According to Dr. Hamilton's intelligence, the Council feared humanity's potential and wanted to keep them isolated until they could be controlled. Knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. General Patricia Stone entered, followed by Dr. Allen. Price, the head of Earth's most advanced research facilities. Both looked determined. "Mr. President," General Stone said, "we need to talk about our response to this situation." Brooks gestured for them to sit. "I'm listening." Dr. Price activated a holographic display showing data from the diplomatic mission. "Our people gathered significant intelligence while they were at the council station. The alien technology we observed is impressive, but it's also old. Some of their systems haven't been updated in centuries." "What are you saying?" Brooks asked. "I'm saying they've grown comfortable," General Stone replied. "They've had peace for so long that they've forgotten how to fight. Their ships are designed for patrol duties and ceremonial functions, not warfare." Dr. Price nodded. "Their energy shields are powerful but inflexible. Their weapons are designed to disable rather than destroy. Everything about their technology suggests a civilization that hasn't faced a real threat in generations." Brooks leaned back in his chair. "And you think we should become that threat?" "I think we should become strong enough that they can't ignore." "U.S.," Stone said. "Right now, they see us as primitive beings who need their permission to exist. We need to change that perception." Dr. Price pulled up another display showing human technological achievements. "We've made incredible advances in just the past 50 years. Our adaptive learning systems, our manufacturing capabilities, our problem-solving methods, all these things make us dangerous to species that have grown stagnant. What do you propose?" Brooks asked. "The Prometheus Initiative," Dr. Price said. "A crash program to advance human technology beyond anything the Council has. We focus on 3 areas: propulsion systems that can outrun their ships, defensive systems that can adapt to their weapons, and communication networks that they can't intercept." General Stone added, "We also need to expand our territory. The Council expects us to stay in our little corner of the galaxy, but space is big. There are resources and worlds out there that no one has claimed." Brooks stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. Below, he could see crowds of people still gathered in the streets, holding signs demanding action. How long would this take? 2 years for the first phase, Dr. Price said. 5 years for full implementation. But we'd start seeing results within months. And the cost? Everything we have, Stone said bluntly. This won't be cheap or easy. We'll need to mobilize the entire planet's resources. Brooks turned back to face them. "What about the other species? Are there any aliens who might work with us?" Dr. Price smiled. Dr. Hamilton identified several species that seemed unhappy with the Council's decision. The Altarians, for example, are masters of energy manipulation, but they're treated as second-class citizens because they joined the Council recently. The Vegans have incredible mining technology, but they're restricted in where they can work. "You're talking about breaking up the Council," Brooks said. "I'm talking about giving those species a choice," Stone replied. "Right now, they have to follow Council rules or face isolation. We could offer them something better." Brooks made his decision. "Do it. Start the Prometheus Initiative immediately. And General, begin expanding our fleet. If the Council wants to treat us as a threat, we'll give them a reason to be afraid." The next 6 months transformed human space. Factories that had been building civilian ships were retooled for military production. Research stations that had been studying peaceful applications of technology were redirected toward defense and expansion. Captain Morrison was promoted to admiral and given command of the growing human fleet. His first mission was to establish new colonies and systems that the Council had ignored. Each new world became a stepping stone toward greater human influence. Dr. Hamilton returned to Earth to head the new Alien Affairs Department. Her job was to secretly contact species that might be willing to work with humanity. Her first success came with the Altarians, who were impressed by human energy research and offered to share their knowledge in exchange for human manufacturing techniques. Commander Foster, now Admiral Foster, led the development of human military doctrine. He studied every piece of information they had gathered about Council forces and developed strategies to counter their advantages. His motto became adapt and overcome, and he trained human crews to think creatively in combat situations. First major test came when a Council patrol fleet arrived at the edge of human space. 3 alien ships, each the size of a human cruiser, demanded that the colony ship UES Pioneer return to Earth-controlled space. Admiral Foster met them with 5 human escort vessels. The aliens expected the humans to comply with their demands, but Foster had other plans. "This is Admiral Foster of the Human Space Defense Force," he transmitted to the alien ships. "You are in human territorial space. Please state your business." The alien commander, a draconian named Korvac, was clearly surprised by the response. "Humans do not have territorial rights in this sector. Return to your designated space immediately." "I'm afraid that's not going to happen," Foster replied. "This system is now under human protection. You're welcome to observe our colonization efforts, but you cannot interfere with them." What happened next shocked the alien patrol. The human ships moved with coordination and speed that the Council forces had never seen. They surrounded the alien vessels and activated defensive systems that adapted to each scan the aliens made. When the draconian commander tried to target the human ships with his weapons, he found that their targeting systems couldn't lock on. The human ships seemed to shift and change, making it impossible to get a clear shot. "What is this technology?" Korvac demanded. "It's called adaptation," Foster replied. "Something your Council seems to have forgotten about." A standoff lasted for 3 hours. The alien ships tried various tactics to force the humans to withdraw, but each attempt was countered by human innovation. Finally, realizing that they were outmatched, the Council patrol withdrew. News of the encounter spread quickly through both human and alien space. For the first time in centuries, Council forces had been forced to retreat by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Dr. Price's research teams were making breakthroughs every week. Human ships now featured armor that learned from enemy weapons, becoming stronger with each attack. Their engines used quantum tunneling principles that allowed them to appear and disappear across vast distances almost instantly. Prometheus' initiative was working, but it was also changing humanity. The rejection by the Council had awakened something in the human spirit, a determination to prove that they were not just another species seeking acceptance, but a force to be respected. President Brooks received daily reports about human expansion. New colonies were being established faster than ever before. Trade agreements were being signed with alien species that had grown tired of Council restrictions. The human economy was booming as resources from dozens of worlds flowed back to Earth. But the most important change was in human confidence. The species that had approached the Council as humble petitioners was gone. In its place was a civilization that knew its own worth and was determined to claim its place in the galaxy. The Council's rejection had been meant to keep humanity small and contained. Instead, it had awakened a sleeping giant that was now growing stronger every day. The aliens who had feared human potential were about to discover that their fears had been well-founded. The age of human expansion had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. 2 years had passed since the Council's rejection, and human space looked completely different. Where once there had been a few scattered colonies, now there were dozens of thriving worlds. Human ships moved freely through sectors that had been empty just months before, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. Admiral Ryan Foster stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Defiance, the first of humanity's new Titan-class dreadnoughts. The ship was massive, larger than anything the Council had ever built, and it represented everything humanity had learned about warfare and technology in the past 2 years. "Sir, "We're receiving a transmission from the Altarian delegation," reported Lieutenant Ben Taylor, the ship's tactical officer. "They're requesting permission to come aboard." "Granted," Foster replied. "And make sure they're given full honors. These are our allies now." The Altarians had been the first alien species to break with the Council and joined humanity's growing alliance. Their ability to manipulate energy fields had been crucial in developing the new human defensive systems. In return, human manufacturing technology had allowed them to build ships and equipment that the Council had denied them for centuries. Chief Engineer Karen White emerged from the lower decks, her uniform stained with grease and her face bright with excitement. "Admiral, you need to see what we've accomplished with the new drive systems." Foster followed her to the engineering section, where a massive quantum tunneling drive hummed with barely contained energy. "This is the third generation of the technology," White explained. "We can now move a ship this size across 3 solar systems in minutes, not hours." "What about the power requirements?" Foster asked. "That's the beautiful part," White said. "The Altarians helped us develop energy collectors that can draw power from the quantum vacuum itself. We're essentially running on unlimited fuel." The implications were staggering. Human ships could now appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning, strike with devastating force, and disappear before enemy forces could respond. It was a level of tactical mobility that no Council species possessed. Intelligence Director Paul Jackson arrived with his latest reports. "Admiral, we've made contact with 12 more species that are interested in joining our alliance. The vegan crystal miners want to trade rare materials for our manufacturing technology. The Centauri navigation specialists are offering to share their star charts in exchange for our communication systems." Foster nodded. "What about Council response?" "They're getting nervous," Jackson said. "Our sources inside the Council report that there are heated debates about the human problem. Some species want to negotiate, others want to take military action." "Let them debate," Foster replied. "Every day they spend talking is another day. We grow stronger." Dr. Lisa Hamilton, now head of the Alien Affairs Department, had been working tirelessly to build relationships with species that felt oppressed by the Council's rigid hierarchy. Her success had been remarkable. What had started as a few informal contacts had grown into a full alliance of nearly 20 species. "The Free Worlds Alliance is becoming more than just a name," she reported to President Brooks during their weekly briefing. "We now have formal treaties with 19 species, and more are expressing interest every week." Brooks looked at the star charts showing human expansion. "Are we moving too fast? Some of my advisors are worried that we're making too many enemies." "Mr. President," Hamilton said, "the Council made us their enemy when they rejected us. Everything we've done since then has been about survival and growth. We're not conquering anyone. We're offering them a choice." "What kind of choice?" "Freedom," Hamilton said simply. "Freedom to develop their own technology. Freedom to trade with whoever they want. Freedom to govern themselves without Council interference." The response has been overwhelming. The Council's rigid system had created resentment among many species. Younger races were treated as junior partners, restricted in their development, and forced to follow rules made by species that had joined the Council centuries earlier. Humanity's offer of genuine equality was something many had never experienced. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the exploration vessel U-East Discovery, was leading humanity's push into unexplored sectors. His mission was to find new worlds and new allies before the Council could react to human expansion. "We've discovered something interesting," he reported to Admiral Foster. "There's an entire region of space that the Council has marked as forbidden territory. Our scans show at least 50 habitable worlds that have been completely ignored." "Any idea why?" Foster asked. "The locals call it the quarantine zone," Morrison replied. "Apparently, there was some kind of conflict there centuries ago, and the council decided it was too dangerous to explore. Foster smiled. Sounds like exactly the kind of place we need to investigate. The expedition to the quarantine zone revealed the truth about the council's fears. The region was home to several species that had refused to join the galactic government, preferring to maintain their independence. The council had declared them dangerous and forbidden contact, but in reality, they were simply free peoples who valued their autonomy. The discovery of the independent species provided humanity with powerful new allies. The Epsilon Eridani Collective, a group of machine intelligences, offered to share their advanced manufacturing techniques. The Tau City Consortium, master traders who had been cut off from galactic commerce, eagerly joined the Free Worlds Alliance. Each new alliance made humanity stronger and the council weaker. Species that had been loyal to the galactic government for centuries began to question why they needed council permission to trade with humans or adopt human technology. The breaking point came when the council issued a formal demand. All species were forbidden from trading with humans or providing them with any form of assistance. Violations would result in immediate expulsion from the council and economic sanctions. The response was not what the council expected. Instead of compliance, 6 more species formally withdrew from the galactic government and joined the Free Worlds Alliance. The ancient unity that had held the galaxy together for millennia was cracking under the pressure of human expansion. Engineer White unveiled humanity's latest achievement, the Omega-class space stations. These massive structures could support millions of inhabitants and served as manufacturing centers, research facilities, and military bases all in one. The first station, New Geneva, was placed at the edge of council space as a clear statement of human intentions. The council's scouts have been watching us build it, White reported. They seem particularly interested in our defensive systems. The station's defenses were indeed impressive. Adaptive shields that could absorb and redirect energy attacks, automated defense platforms that could engage multiple targets simultaneously, and quantum communication arrays that could coordinate with human forces across the galaxy. But the most important feature was symbolic. New Geneva flew the flag of the Free Worlds Alliance, a symbol that now represented nearly 30 species working together as equals. It was everything the Council claimed to be, but had never actually achieved. Admiral Foster received word that the Council was assembling a fleet. Intelligence reports suggested that they were preparing for military action against human expansion. The message was clear: submit to Council authority or face the consequences. Foster's response was equally clear. He ordered the human fleet to full readiness and sent a message to all Free Worlds Alliance members. If the Council wanted a fight, they would get one. President Brooks held an emergency session with world leaders and colonial governors. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would not back down. They had tried diplomacy and been rejected. They had tried coexistence and been threatened. Now they would try strength. The mobilization was unlike anything in human history. Every ship, every station, every colony prepared for war. The species that had once begged for acceptance was now ready to fight for its place in the galaxy. Dr. Hamilton monitored alien communications as the crisis deepened. The Council is divided, she reported. Some species want to negotiate. Others want to destroy us completely. But they're all afraid of what we've become. Good, Brooks replied. Fear is the beginning of respect. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the future of the galaxy. On one side stood the ancient Council, with its thousands of years of tradition and its massive fleet. On the other side stood humanity and its growing alliance of free species, united by a common desire for independence and equality. The Council had rejected humanity when they sought peace. Now they would face humanity's power, and the galaxy would never be the same. The neutral system of Proxima 7 became the center of galactic attention as two massive fleets faced each other across the void. The Council had assembled the largest military force in their history, 2,000 ships from 30 different species. Commanded by the fearsome draconian Admiral Vicmer, Admiral Ryan Foster stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Defiance, watching the enemy fleet through the view screen. The sight was impressive and terrifying. Ships of every size and shape filled the star system, their weapons powered and their crews ready for battle. "Sir, final count shows Council forces at 2,014 vessels," reported Tactical Officer Ben Taylor. "We're facing odds of nearly 5 to 1. Foster nodded calmly. "Numbers aren't everything, Lieutenant. Quality beats quantity every time." The human fleet numbered only 400 ships, but each one represented the best of human engineering and innovation. Beside them flew 300 vessels from the Free Worlds Alliance, creating a rainbow of different designs and technologies, united by a common cause. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the flagship U.E.S. Defiance alongside Foster. His job was to coordinate the battle while Foster handled overall strategy. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Council fleet." The image of Admiral Vecmer appeared on the main screen. The Draconian was an impressive sight, standing nearly 8 feet tall with scales that gleamed like metal armor. His voice carried the authority of someone who had never been defeated in battle. "Human Admiral," Vecmer said, his words translated by the ship's computer. "You have one chance to avoid the destruction of your species. Surrender now, and the Council may show mercy." Foster stepped forward, his own image being transmitted to the enemy fleet. "Admiral Vecmer, you seem to have made a mistake. This is not a surrender. This is a statement. Humanity will not be bullied, contained, or controlled." "Then you have chosen extinction," Vecmer replied. "The Council has been patient with your expansion, but that patience is at an end." "The Council rejected us when we sought peace," Foster said. "Now you'll learn what happens when you force humanity to choose war." The transmission ended, and both fleets prepared for battle. Communications Officer Amy Chun monitored the channels as last-minute preparations were made. "Sir, all human vessels report ready. Alliance forces are also prepared." Dr. Lisa Hamilton, now serving as the fleet's alien affairs coordinator, had been listening to enemy communications. "Admiral, there's something you should know. Several Council species are having second thoughts about this battle. The younger generation of many species doesn't support the war." "Will they break ranks?" Foster asked. "Probably not during the battle," Hamilton replied. "But if we can show them that the Council can be defeated, everything changes." The battle began with long-range weapons fire. Council ships launched energy beams and plasma missiles, weapons that had been effective against pirates and rebels for centuries. But human ships were different. Their adaptive armor analyzed each attack and adjusted, becoming more resistant with every hit. "Their weapons are barely scratching our hulls," reported Chief Engineer Karen White from the engine room. "The adaptive systems are working perfectly." Foster ordered the human fleet to advance. What happened next shocked the Council forces. Instead of moving in formation like traditional fleets, human ships began to disappear and reappear across the battlefield using their quantum tunneling drives. "What sorcery is this?" Vecmer demanded as human vessels materialized inside his formation, struck at vulnerable targets, and vanished before his ships could respond. Captain Morrison coordinated the attacks with precision. "Beta Squadron, target their command ships. Engines, Gamma Squadron, hit their communication arrays. Delta Squadron, take out their heavy weapons platforms." The Council fleet had never faced anything like this. Their ships were designed for traditional combat, where fleets faced each other in organized formations and fought with honor and established tactics. The humans fought like ghosts, striking from impossible angles and disappearing before retaliation. Could be organized. Tactical Officer Taylor monitored the battle from his position. Sir, Council forces are trying to adapt to our tactics, but they're too slow. Their command structure can't handle our speed. The Free Worlds Alliance ships fought alongside their human partners with enthusiasm. The Altarians used their energy, manipulation abilities to overload Council shields. The vegan crystal miners deployed weapons that could cut through the strongest armor. The Epsilon Eridani machines coordinated attacks with computer precision. Admiral Vekmer found himself fighting a battle he didn't understand. His forces outnumbered the humans 5-1, but numbers meant nothing when the enemy could appear anywhere and strike at will. His carefully planned formations became chaos as human ships materialized inside his defensive lines. All ships, concentrate fire on Sector 7, he ordered. Destroy those human vessels. But by the time his ships had repositioned, the human forces had already moved to a different location. It was like trying to fight smoke. Dr. Hamilton intercepted communications from several Council ships. Admiral, some of the younger species are beginning to question their orders. The Centauri delegation is asking why they're fighting humans who only want freedom. Foster saw an opportunity. Open a channel to all Council forces, he ordered. His voice went out across the battlefield, translated into dozens of languages. This is Admiral Foster of the Human Space Defense Force. You don't have to fight this battle. Your leaders rejected humanity because they feared what we might become. But we're not your enemy. We're offering you the same thing we offered you. Free Worlds Alliance, freedom to choose your own path. The message caused confusion in the Council ranks. Some ships continued fighting, but others began to hesitate. The unity that had held the Council together for millennia was cracking under the pressure of battle. Captain Morrison saw the Council's weakness and pressed the advantage. All ships target their command structure. If we can break their coordination, we can end this without destroying everyone. The assault on the Council command ship was brilliant in its execution. Human vessels appeared around the massive dreadnought from every direction. Their weapons focused on communication arrays and control systems. They didn't try to destroy the ship, but to capture it. Admiral Vekmer realized what was happening. Too late. All ships, protect the command vessel, he ordered, but his communications were already being disrupted by human electronic warfare. The boarding action that followed became legendary. Human Marines, trained in zero-gravity combat and equipped with adaptive armor, cut through the Council ship's defenses like they were paper. They moved with coordination and purpose, disabling enemy systems while avoiding unnecessary casualties. Vekmer found himself facing Captain Morrison in his own command center. The human officer was smaller than the draconian admiral, but his confidence was unmistakable. Admiral, Morrison said, this battle is over. Your fleet is scattered, your communications are down, and your allies are beginning to doubt their cause. A draconian does not surrender, Vekmer replied, reaching for his weapon. Then don't surrender, Morrison said. Retreat. Live to fight another day. But understand this, the age of the Council is ending. You can either adapt to the new reality, or be destroyed by it. The sight of the Council command ship being captured sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. Ship after ship began to withdraw from the battle, their crews unwilling to die for a cause that was already lost. Dr. Hamilton monitored the retreat with satisfaction. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different species. They want to know the terms for joining the Free Worlds Alliance. Foster smiled grimly. Tell them they're welcome to negotiate. But first, they need to officially withdraw from the Council. The Battle of Proxima 7 lasted only 6 hours, but its effects would shape the galaxy for generations. The mighty Council fleet assembled to crush human expansion, had been defeated by a smaller force using superior tactics and technology. News of the battle spread across the galaxy at light speed. On dozens of worlds, species that had been loyal to the Council for centuries began to question their allegiance. The humans had proven that the old order could be challenged and defeated. Admiral Vecmer, his pride wounded, but his honor intact, sent a final message to Foster. "You have won this battle, human, but the war is not over." "Yes, it is," Foster replied. "You just don't know it yet." As the Council fleet retreated, damaged and demoralized, the Free Worlds Alliance fleet took control of the Proxima 7 system. It would become the first of many systems to change hands in the coming months. The galaxy had seen the future, and it was human. 1 year after the Battle of Proxima 7, the galaxy looked completely different. The old council that had ruled for millennia was crumbling, while humanity's Free Worlds Alliance grew stronger every day. 15 species had officially withdrawn from the council, and dozens more were considering joining the new alliance. President Nathan Brooks stood in the Great Hall of New Geneva Station, watching as representatives from 60 different species gathered for the most important meeting in galactic history. Today they would sign the charter that would govern the galaxy for generations to come. "Mr. President," said his aide, bringing him the latest reports, "the final signatures are being prepared. The new Galactic Compact will be official within the hour." Brooks nodded, thinking about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. 3 years ago, humanity had been rejected by the Council as too primitive and aggressive. Now they were leading the creation of a new galactic government based on equality and cooperation. Admiral Ryan Foster entered the hall, his uniform decorated with medals from a dozen different species. The Battle of Proxima 7 had made him famous across the galaxy, but he wore his honors with quiet dignity. "Admiral," Brooks said, "how are our new allies settling in?" "Better than expected," Foster replied. "The former council species are amazed by how efficient our systems are. They're used to waiting months for decisions from the old bureaucracy. With us, they can get answers in days." Dr. Lisa Hamilton joined them, carrying a datapad filled with reports from across human space. "The integration is going smoothly," she said. "We now have joint research projects with 37 different species, and the results are incredible." The new Galactic Compact was everything the old council had claimed to be, but never achieved. Instead of a rigid hierarchy with ancient species making decisions for everyone else, it was a true democracy where each member had an equal voice. Captain Jake Morrison, now serving as humanity's chief ambassador to the former council worlds, had spent months negotiating with species that had been enemies just a year before. His success had been remarkable. "The Draconians were the hardest to convince," Morrison reported to the group. "Their culture values strength above all else, and they respected our victory at Proxima 7. Admiral Vecmer himself requested to join our alliance." Dr. Alan Price, who had led the Prometheus initiative that transformed human technology, was now heading the Interspecies Research Institute. His teams were working on projects that would have been impossible under the old council system. "We've made breakthroughs that are changing everything," Price explained to Brooks. "The Altarian energy techniques, combined with human manufacturing, are producing ships that can travel across the galaxy in hours instead of weeks. The vegan mining technology is giving us access to materials we never knew existed." The transformation wasn't just technological. The social changes were equally dramatic. Species that had been separated by council regulations were now working together as equals. Trade flowed freely between worlds, and ideas spread at the speed of light. Ambassador Helen Carter, who had led humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Council, now served as the coordinator for the new alliance's diplomatic course. She had learned much since that day when humanity was rejected and humiliated. The young people from every species are embracing the new system, she reported. They're tired of the old restrictions and excited about the possibilities we're offering. The economic changes were staggering. Worlds that had been poor under council rule were now prosperous members of the Free Worlds Alliance. The rigid trade controls that had kept many species dependent on the council had been replaced by open markets and fair competition. Chief Engineer Karang Light had been promoted to head of Alliance Engineering, overseeing the construction of new shipyards and space stations across dozens of systems. Her latest project was a mobile construction platform that could build entire fleets while traveling between star systems. We're not just building ships, White explained. We're building the infrastructure for a new kind of civilization. One where distance doesn't matter, and every species can contribute to the common good. The old council still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. Only 23 species remained loyal to the ancient government, and even they were beginning to question the wisdom of their leaders. Prime Minister Veltar, the Zephyrian who had rejected humanity's first application, requested a private meeting with President Brooks. The ancient being looked tired and defeated as he entered the human president's office. Mr. President, Veltar said through his translation device, I have come to discuss the future of my people. Brooks gestured for the alien leader to sit. I'm listening, Prime Minister. The council was wrong to reject humanity, Veltar admitted. We were afraid of your potential, afraid of change, afraid of losing our position as the galaxy's leaders. That fear has cost us everything. What are you asking for? Brooks inquired. A place in your new alliance, Veltar said quietly. The Zephyrians are an old people, but we are not ready to fade into history. We have knowledge and experience that could benefit the galaxy. Brooks considered the request carefully. The Zephyrians had been humanity's strongest opponents in the Council, but they were also one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their knowledge could be valuable to the Alliance. The Free Worlds Alliance welcomes all species who are committed to peace and cooperation, Brooks said finally. But you'll have to earn your place like everyone else. There are no special privileges based on age or past power. Veltar nodded slowly. I understand. My people are prepared to prove themselves worthy of membership. The signing ceremony for the new Galactic Compact was broadcast across the galaxy. Representatives from 60 species put their names to the document that would govern interstellar relations for generations to come. President Brooks delivered the closing address to the assembled delegates and the watching galaxy. 3 years ago, the Council turned away from humanity when we sought peace. They forced us to find our strength. But we didn't use that strength to conquer or destroy. We used it to build something better. He paused, looking out at the diverse crowd of beings from dozens of worlds. Today, we establish a new kind of galactic government, one based on equality rather than hierarchy, on cooperation rather than control, on innovation rather than tradition. The response was overwhelming. Across the galaxy, beings who had lived under Council rule for centuries celebrated the birth of a new age. On Earth, crowds gathered in the streets to watch their president address the galaxy as an equal among equals. Admiral Foster, standing beside the president, thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. The human who had once been skeptical of alien contact was now working alongside beings from dozens of different worlds. The Free Worlds Alliance represents more than just a political change, Brooks continued. It represents a new way of thinking about our place in the universe. We are not separate species competing for resources. We are partners in the greatest adventure in galactic history. Dr. Hamilton, monitoring communications from across the galaxy, smiled as she read the messages flooding in from member worlds. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now planning joint projects. Scientists from different star systems were sharing research. Artists were creating works that blended the best of dozens of cultures. The economic data was equally impressive. Trade between alliance worlds had increased by 400% in just 1 year. New colonies were being established at an unprecedented rate. Technological advancement was accelerating as different species shared their knowledge freely. But perhaps the most important change was psychological. The galaxy's younger generation, regardless of species, saw themselves as citizens of the Alliance rather than subjects of their individual governments. They thought in terms of collaboration rather than competition. The Council ruled through fear and control, Brooks said as his speech reached its conclusion. We will lead through hope and opportunity. The old age of stagnation is over. The new age of exploration and growth has begun. The ceremony ended with the raising of the Alliance flag on New Geneva Station. The symbol, designed by artists from 12 different species, represented unity in diversity and strength through cooperation. As the delegates began to disperse, returning to their homeworlds to implement the new charter, Brooks reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had gone from being rejected by the galactic community to leading it in the span of just 3 years. Captain Morrison approached the president as the hall began to empty. Sir, we've received word that 2 more council species want to join the Alliance. The Andromedans and the Centauri Collective have both submitted formal applications. Process them according to the new charter, Brooks replied. No special treatment, but no discrimination either. Dr. Price joined them with his latest research reports. Mr. President, the projects we're working on with our new allies are going to revolutionize space travel. We're looking at technologies that could open up entire new galaxies for exploration. Brooks smiled. 3 years ago, we were asking permission to explore our own solar system's neighborhood. Now we're talking about other galaxies. The transformation was indeed remarkable. The species that had been deemed too ag